Hello and good evening and welcome to the Celebration of Services, or Celebration of Service. This is one of my favorite events. That's something I've been saying a lot lately. It's probably because we haven't had any events in 3 years. So it's great to do this in person. We've done it the last couple of years virtually, but it's not the same. Being able to meet you and your families and talk about all the great things that you've done over the last several decades. So this award ceremony is being recorded by BEC-TV for future replay. And each year we pay tribute to employees who embody our organizational values through years of dedicated service to the lives of kids. On behalf of the school board, we are grateful for your service, dedication, and commitment to one of the most important callings as a profession. You have challenged young minds, provided an environment conducive of learning, and prepared our students to become lifelong learners. Thank you for all that you do on behalf of our most precious resources, children, and all of our learners. So now I'll go ahead and introduce my fellow board members, and when I call your name, go ahead and head up to the stage, and if you want to give a round of applause to these wonderful board members, that'd be great too. So we'll start with Clerk Nellie Corman. Next we have Director Beth Beebe. Vice Chair Heather Starks. Treasurer Maya Olson. And our newest and everyone's favorite board member, Director Matt Demick. And now, with great pleasure, I'll turn over to our MC for this evening, the man who needs no introduction. You know him, you love him, you can't get enough of his Melby minutes. Here he is, our superintendent, Dr. Eric Melby.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair Bennett. So great to see all of you here this evening. As Chair Bennett said, I'm Eric Melby, the superintendent, Monday through Friday, and on weekends I'm in a boy band. That's why I'm wearing the, you're just kidding. It's really good to have you here tonight. I do want to acknowledge that it's a tough day in schools after what happened in Texas yesterday, but it's good for us to try to maintain normality, and we haven't had this kind of normality for a couple of years due to pandemic. So as tough as it is, we are here to celebrate, and we will celebrate the service that these folks have given to the Bloomington Public Schools for a long time, for many of you. So thank you. So this event celebrates, honors staff for their years of dedication and commitment to serving the learners of the Bloomington Public Schools. We recognize staff members who will be retiring or leaving after having served the school district for 10 or more years. That's what gets you into this event. Staff members who have served the district for 15 years or more receive a school bell. Those who have served 10 to 14 years will receive a certificate of appreciation. Since last year's virtual celebration of service, we have had, and this is why I need my notes, 67 staff members with 10 or more years of service either leave or plan to leave at the end of the school year. This represents a total of 1,306 years of service. It's a big number, and we're grateful for it. And tonight we'll be recognizing 25 staff members, honoring them for a grand total of 484 years of service in the Bloomington Public Schools. So let's give them a quick round of applause for that. So as Chair Bennett mentioned, you're on TV, so please be on your best behavior. We don't have a 7-minute sensor delay here. So, but here's how it'll work tonight. I'm going to announce the name of the honored guest along with their principal, supervisor, or speaker who will be talking about that person. And warning, it's not in alphabetical order, so don't judge us on that. There's a method to the madness here. So when I read your name, I will hopefully not butcher your name, but this is a little nerve-wracking, so if I do, I apologize in advance, but I practiced, I promise you. And I'd ask the honoree to come up and kind of stand by the podium here. The person who's giving the speech will give the speech at the podium, and then you'll go through the school board line to receive your certificate or bell. Without further ado then, here we go, and I get to model this for everybody, so I'm going to ask Dave Heisted to come up to the podium. And of course, I can't stand too close to the podium. So the rest of you presenters, stand at the podium. I'm going to stand with Dave right here. All right. 10 years. 10 years, Dr. Heisted. Seems like only yesterday I was on the interview team, and I was on the interview team that chose to hire Dr. Heisted. And to this day, I still remember him talking about how when he was a kid even, he loved probability and statistics, and how, once in a while, I'll probably butcher this story, Dave, but he would get into trouble because his parents would say, okay, Dave, time for bed. You know how it was when you were a kid, a lot of us would, go to bed, and sometimes we'd sneak a comic book in with us, or if you're a kid from the 80s like me, you had a little Mattel football game, that you'd play with blips underneath your covers. Not Dave. He'd go in with a flashlight and Yahtzee and roll dice and try to figure out the probabilities so he, could win the Yahtzee games later. I love that story, and I still tell it about you when I'm out in public, even though you don't know that. I think that speaks to Dave's love of his work. They say you choose a job you'll love, and you'll never do a day of work in your life. And I get the feeling for Dr. Heisted that's been the case for a long time. So a little bit about Dr. Heisted. He's a Minnesota guy through and through. Washburn High School, go
cheer for the orange and blue.
Orange and blue, go Millers. Then he got his undergrad at St. Olaf, go Olies, right?
Yeah, right.
And there you go. And all of his postgraduate work up to his doctorate at the University of Minnesota, so go Gophers. While he's had other jobs like being a special education teacher and a residential treatment coordinator, my guess, Dave, is that you truly fell in love with your work when you became the Special Programs Evaluation and Research Coordinator for the Minneapolis Public Schools in 1987. Congratulations on that in 1987. To give us all in the crowd a little bit of context, or some perspective on how much experience Dave has in research evaluation and assessment work, the top 3 grossing movies in 1987, I could almost do a quiz, but I'll just give you the answers right now. Number 1, Beverly Hills Cop. 2, Fatal Attraction, and the third biggest movie that year was Wall Street. My favorite, though, is the best-selling pop single or song from that year was Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You. You guys know that song, Never Gonna Give You Up, right? So I'd like to say that, like Dave, that song has aged well and has staying power, right? It's still on TV all the time, so it's been a while. Dave eventually became the executive director of research evaluation and assessment for Minneapolis in 1997 and led that work in Minneapolis until he came to do that kind of work for us here in Bloomington in 2012. Over the years, Dave has established himself, and this is where I get quite serious, as a preeminent educational research evaluation and assessment expert in the state of Minnesota. It's not hyperbole. I'm not respected RE person in the state and quite possibly in the multi-state upper Midwest, however you'd want to say it. So congratulations, Dave. You've earned that respect. Over the years, Dave has done things. He's been asked to testify at the legislature, present at conferences, teach at universities, write grants, lead partnerships with community agencies. I don't know if you still do, but for a long time you were going to Washington, D.C. to be part of an elite team of experts from across the country to evaluate federal grants. The list goes on and on. Literally every superintendent in the state, I believe, knows who Dr. Heisted is and is jealous that we have him in Bloomington as a full-time employee. So we're fortunate in that way. Dave has led multiple research projects for the district over the past 10 years and has had a high amount of influence on the innovative programming that we do have in the district, which is really cool. Dave is going to be high in demand for consulting work when he gets done with us here soon. But thankfully, I've talked to Dave, and he's going to give us the Disney theme park fast pass. So if Bloomington comes and says we need help, he's dropping everybody else and coming to help us out in Bloomington. So I'm happy about that. A little bit more, Dave loves his family, of course. His wife Christy's here tonight, kids, grandkids, I think, and I didn't ask Dave ahead, but I'm thinking coming in a close second is baseball, right? Huge fan of the Twins, goes to a lot of games, and if you didn't know, Dave is a musician as well with a wonderful singing voice. And I know this because he's told me, but also because when I was the assistant superintendent and would run summer leadership academies, we'd ask Dave to come in and give us updates on our test scores in the district, and Dave took to putting his report to a Beatles song and singing it to us, which was a really good way to get that news sometimes. That was fantastic. And then I want to personally thank Dave because I wouldn't be Dr. Melby in front of you without his help on my dissertation, and I noted that in the notes and I thanked him multiple times, so thank you, Dave. I'll end this with 2 little-known facts about Dave. He remains the only St. Olaf Ole baseball player in history to throw a baseball so fast it broke their radar gun. Maybe. And if you're a Led Zeppelin fan like I am, you know that Robert Plant wasn't their first choice for vocalist. It was Dave. Those may not be true facts, actually, but all joking aside, I'm honored to have got to know and work with Dr. Heisted. You're a fantastic teammate. You're going to be missed on a day-to-day basis, but I know we'll see you around. Best to you and Christy in the next stage of your life.
Thanks so much, Eric.
All right, as Dave is making his way through the line, I'm going to ask Patty Artiel to come up, Q-Comp coach this year, or for the last few years, and then Kelly Spees, the Q-Comp teacher evaluation coordinator, to say a few words about Patty.
Our dear Patty. I was going to do a Patty, Patty, Patty song because we're going to miss our dear Patty. Patty has spent 16 years of her career in Bloomington. Before coming to Bloomington, she was in Edina, where she grew up. We don't hold that against her, though, here in Bloomington. We're just glad that she decided to come here. Patty is a dedicated teacher who spent her first 11 years in Bloomington teaching reading at Oak Grove Middle School. She was an advocate for her students and formed lasting relationships with them. She has embraced her role in the past 5 years by becoming that same advocate for staff. Patty is a Q-Comp coach and has recently worked at Poplar Bridge and Washburn. Her delight in working with elementary teachers after being in the middle school and the joy she has at the students and the staff and the stories she shares is evident. Her stories about connections with staff and students at Poplar Bridge and Washburn warmed our hearts on the coaching team, and it demonstrated her appreciation of our staff and all that staff gives to learners each day. Patty also serves on the Political Action co-chair for the BFT and has rallied us to show up and champion for the needs of all educators and students in the state. Patty's quick wit and very smart sense of humor has added so much fun to our team over the past 5 years. We are really going to miss that. Thank you, Patty. And from the entire team, we wish you the best as she continues redirecting her pace and her journey, as she continues to share books and life with all of those around her. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kelly and Patty. Up next, we'll have Joan Malin come up, principal at Valley View Elementary, and Dr. Jenna Mitchler, the assistant superintendent. There'll be a lot of bells ringing tonight, yes.
Thank you. I told Joan I was so looking forward to tonight because I just couldn't wait to talk about how much I've appreciated working with her. So I also couldn't wait to meet her family. I've heard so much about Bob. So in my time working with Joan, I've really come to know her as incredibly purposeful and thoughtful in all of her actions and in her decision making. She's also very articulate and thoughtful with her words. So I wanted to be very careful to write out what I was going to say here because that's a gift I want to also give to her tonight. Our students and our families have really relied on her for guidance and for support, and she just skillfully provides that every day. I have relied on her too for guidance, as she's been a leader that I look to and lean on as a thought partner. And you make people laugh, Joan. You make me laugh, and that makes everybody very, very happy. When I asked Joan what some of the highlights of her career in Bloomington Public Schools have been, she said that the highlights have been really and truly building relationships with students and with staff and with families. And then she also mentioned that she's done a couple of things she's very proud of. She's worked really hard with Indian Mounds Elementary staff, who together wrote and submitted an application for Indian Mounds to have a School of Excellence status. She also supported Bloomington Public Schools and the Bloomington community through several referendums and redrawing school boundaries, and then most recently, Valley View Elementary through a pandemic, which is no small feat. We all know that. She's incredibly proud of the work that she did to lead the redesign of the Mankato Student Teaching Program, which brought our student teachers into classrooms for a full year of teaching. And prior to her work with that program, she was actually a supervisor with Hamline University, which made her a great fit for working with that program and making improvements. Jones trained staff in and led the implementation of positive behavior intervention supports, so PBIS, responsive classroom, restorative practices, AVID, second step SEL, the list goes on and on. And by the way, Joan and her team were talking about SEL and wrote a proposal about social emotional learning long before SEL and social emotional learning became a buzzword in education. She's also worked with Indian Mounds to do a needs assessment and some literacy work, developing a literacy handbook that some of her colleagues used as well. So Joan, you've just done amazing things for us, and we're so happy you've been here. I'm going to conclude by saying that it's just been an honor, really, personally, to get to work with you. And, your leadership's been a gift, and I'm hopeful you'll continue to work with us. She actually might, a little bit, little sneak peek there, in the future. So thank you again for all your work with families, staff, and students. Yeah. Thanks, Joan.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mitchell and Joan. Next up on the stage, Jeff Henneke, preschool kindergarten teacher at Oak Grove Elementary, and then Brian Klein, the principal.
Good evening. I am honored to stand next to Jeff, just not realizing it's the first time in my several years with him I've ever called him Jeff, because at Oak Grove he is not Jeff. He is Teacher Jeff. He's the only one in our building that gets that title. And so I think for me to talk about Teacher Jeff, I have to talk about who he is, not what he does. He is Teacher Jeff because he's earned that. He is, when you think of Jeff and Teacher Jeff in the classroom, put Grizzly Adams and Bob Ross together, and you get Teacher Jeff. Now, how the kids don't fall asleep, well, because they're 4, so they never do, but that helps them keep that calm, right? Like, when you think of Jeff, I don't think I've ever seen Jeff walk the halls of Oak Grove without a little hand in his hand, right? Like, when his principal is exhausted from a day, what does he do? He fills his bucket by going to Teacher Jeff class and seeing the kids smiling and engaging in so many different fun activities and learnings. Fills my bucket with smiles, hugs, and I walk out the door back to the rest of the day. Jeff greets his kids with that warm, soft smile. He helps them through the tears, the crying, the meltdowns that happen on those first days of school, right? And when I go and I'm like, how's it going, Jeff? He goes, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. I'm like, okay. Yes, like you bring the heart to it, Jeff. And you bring those unique experiences, right? We have some of the trees we do have left are maple trees. Every year, Teacher Jeff takes the classes out there, they tap the maple trees, they make maple syrup, and the principal gets to come in and sit down with the kids and have pancakes and maple syrup. Those are the experiences that make up what Bloomington is doing with our children, with our early childhood students, giving them experiences and exposures. And Jeff is doing it with such a kind, gentle heart to match all the academic and social emotional needs that our students have. And so I am so proud that I've gotten to work for and with Jeff for several years. He's the type of man who invites his principal up to his cabin over winter break to just hang out. And then I realized, okay, now I know why you're retiring, because your cabin is ridiculously amazing. And how can your principal afford to do that when he retires? Jeff, I am so proud that you get to walk off into the sunset up to Bemidji with your family and enjoy this. You have left your mark with all the children. I'll close not with my words, but with the 4th grade girl's words, who was sitting in my office after school today, waiting for her parents, and we were just talking about our nights, and I told her what I was doing, and she's like, well, I had Teacher Jeff. I said, oh, you had him back in pre-K? She said, yeah. I said, what do you remember about him? And she said that he was fun, that he made us laugh, and I loved how he talked like a duck. And so, right? So, like, those are the things that kids remember, and Jeff, you've left so many memories with our children. I am indebted to you for that. And I love that I will continue probably in life to call you Teacher Jeff, but I will also continue to call you my friend. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff and Brian. And up next to the stage, Rodney Daniels, a bus driver with the Transportation Center, and Tim Reebach, the Director of Operations.
We're good. Good evening. Rod Daniels was a bus driver for Bloomington Public Schools from 2008 until the summer of 2021, when he retired after serving many years with the district. Prior to driving for Bloomington Public Schools, Rod taught school at Bloomington Jefferson. Rod was a math teacher for 39 years. That deserves an applause right there. After joining the transportation team, Rod was able to work with a former student as a colleague and thought that was rather neat. Rod has always had the cleanest bus. Rod was soft-spoken, but always had the respect of his students. Rod has been a head gymnastic, baseball, and soccer coach. He has played in 3 different community bands. According to his wife, she believes that bus driving was his favorite part of his career. She also told us that at times she catches him looking out the window at certain times of the day to see the buses rolling by. Rod, I know that you know the significance of number 171. 171 was Rod's bus number. And 216? And 12 years on bus 216, most recently on 171. But do you remember the significance of 147.66? In 1982, Rod led a team of gymnasts to the state tournament and took second with a score of 147.66. It is my honor to thank Rod for his many years of service with Bloomington Public Schools, not only as a bus driver, but as a teacher and a coach. Sorry, state champs.
Wow, that deserves another round of applause then. Yeah, way to go. Thank you, Rod. And Tim, up next is James Hunt, bus driver with the Transportation Center, and Tim will stay up here.
Perfect. James Hunt. Jim was a bus driver for Bloomington Public Schools from 2011 until the fall of 2021. When he retired after 11 years of service. For over 30 years prior to coming to Bloomington Public Schools, Jim worked in the banking and financial services areas. Jim was an avid golfer with a passion for the game. So much passion that Jim was one of the founders of the BAA golf program here in Bloomington. Jim was always involved in sports with his children. In traveling soccer and hockey, Jim was either a coach or a manager. Jim loved driving school bus, and when also enjoyed attending school programs for students who were on his route. Jim enjoyed seeing students on his bus grow, especially when he would run into them after they were no longer riders. Jim enjoys time spent with his two grandsons, age 4 and 5. Jim, how was bus 225 a good bus? Sorry, don't answer that. Oh, no. 225 is bad.
Clean as rides.
Well, pretty good.
Nobody could keep them as clean as he did.
No, for sure. It is my honor to thank Jim for his military service, for his years with Bloomington Public Schools, and for the time he volunteered with BAA to support the youth of Bloomington.
Thank you.
Thank you, James and Tim. Next up, Molly O'Brien, Youth and Family Coordinator with Community Education, and Julie Kinsella, the Program Manager.
It is my honor tonight to talk about Molly O'Brien. Molly started with the Kids Safari program in 2008. She worked at Olson and Westwood Kids Safari programs before she switched to working for the Early Learners Academy at Westwood, also known as ELA, as an activity assistant. She did that for 4 years, and then she decided to make the jump to being a paraprofessional in the Sun and Sales programs at Westwood. In 2017, she returned to our Kids Safari program as an inclusion liaison, and within a few years, she became one of our youth and family inclusion coordinators. In this role, Molly found her calling. Her passion for the students she helped support was easily seen. She worked closely with families and built very strong relationships. She immersed herself in the rooms where the inclusion students were there to help them be successful. If you ever walked in when Molly was at our sites, she would be in that room and doing crazy things in the room with those kids. This is especially important these past few years during the unpredictability we were experiencing during COVID. Last year, I had our Youth and Family Coordinator team give adjectives to describe each other. And here are a few words that the team said about Molly. She's versatile, likable, caring, easygoing, crazy, carefree, free-spirited, passionate, engaging, and outgoing. I'm not sure about all of you, but I wouldn't mind having any of these words describe me, except maybe crazy. But as I checked with her, she's the one that gave the word crazy to herself. Molly has endless energy and a positive attitude. She decided she wanted to try something new in December and left us. But I'm thrilled to say today that she's returning this summer to work for us again. Thank you, Molly, for all of your years of service, and I'm looking forward to many more.
Want to make sure, is Manal here tonight? Okay. Then thank you, Molly and Julie. Next up then would be Christine, or as I call her, Christy Everett, counselor at Jefferson High School. And Jason Anderson, principal at Dr. Jason Anderson, principal at Jefferson High School.
Hi, Christy. Thank you, everyone. Christy Everett has been a counselor with Jefferson High School and Bloomington Public Schools for 24 years. Counseling, mentoring, supporting, guiding thousands and thousands of students as they do high school and prepare for life after. Not only is she a counselor with us for a very long time, she's a parent of a Bloomington Public Schools family, including Jefferson High School students as well. She loves Jefferson, she loves Bloomington, and she has been amazing. The role of the school counselor is a very complex position. It is ever-changing. She wears these hats with tremendous skill, pride, and passion. One of my favorite stories from Christy that I recall, it might have been my first year, second year, is that I would often take, and I don't know if she remembers this, I would often take a little black notebook, take notes around calls and whatnot. And I didn't realize it was triggering anxiety with Christy. So I would come to her office once and I said, she was already ready. I go, what? I'm just saying hi, making coffee. She said, well, you have that black book, and I just am nervous every time you have that black notebook with you. So I immediately dropped the black notebook routine. So I really appreciate Christy. She has got a tremendous pride for Jefferson. We will remember her. We are thankful for her, and we are better off because she was with us. Congratulations, Christy. Thank you.
Lori? Okay. Thank you. Just looking at our list here, thank you, Christy. It's the Dr. Anderson show for a little bit here. Lori Gerhardson, paraprofessional tech support at Jefferson. Come on up. I'm glad I learned about that black book too. It was making me nervous back in the day. Thank you.
It's not only bad things in the black notebook, there could be good notes too. All right. Hi, Lori. Lori Gerhardson has been a tech paraprofessional with Bloomington Public Schools for 20 years. At a couple different schools, but most recently with Bloomington Jefferson High School. She is recently left us to move on to St. Basilica for her next journey, but we were so lucky to have her. My experience with tech paraprofessionals for my first couple of years were younger guys who worked from Apple, Apple Store, and they were kind of crunchy, and they really liked gear. And when our opening came up a couple of years ago, and our tech district folks said, we've got your new tech paraprofessionals. I had it in my mind, all right, who's the next tech geek to join us? And when I heard it was Lori, and I saw her, I go, is she a tech geek? And she not only is a tech geek, she's a wonderful and supportive person, and she guided us through a tremendously challenging period with COVID and with all of the tech needs that our families would need and our students would need. She did it with care and compassion, and she has forever changed how I view tech geeks and tech support people. We are so thankful she ended her time in Bloomington with Jefferson. We're sad she is gone. I think it's a little too soon, in my opinion, but we're happy for her, and we wish her all the best. Congratulations.
No Bernard? I know. Just making sure Denard's not here tonight. All right, Dr. Anderson, you're clear. Thank you, Lori. Next up will be the Normandale Hills contingent, so Connie Oldfather and Principal Dr. Andy Volmuth. I know Andy's going to get, Dr. Volmuth's going to give the speech, but I was just in Connie's classroom last week, and my gosh, fantastic.
Do you want to give the rest of the speech?
No, well, I got more if you want it, but yeah.
Well, he's got that microphone. I wish I had that microphone, but thank you, and thank you, school board, for putting this on. It's great to be back here tonight and celebrate, and congratulations to all of the retirees and their families. I'm a lucky principal in a lot of ways because I get to talk about people that I respect a great deal, that are very, very good at their job, and Connie is one of them. And I wear dual hats. My three children all had Connie as a kindergarten teacher, so Mrs. Oldfather's a pretty important person in our house. And to this day, my son, who's a seventh grader, who no one will repeat this story, has a what do we call it? Ball. Beach ball in his room, signed by Mrs. Oldfather in his kindergarten classrooms to this day as a reminder. That's the significance of the work that Connie has done for students, hundreds of students in Bloomington, including my own. Connie has spent the last 34 years as a kindergarten teacher in Bloomington, the last 24 at Normandale Hills, along with her career partner, who's here, Margie Dahl, and several great teammates. Connie has defined the kindergarten experience for Normandale Hills families over the past 2 decades. Families have made school choice decisions based on their love and affection, and when I mean love and affection, I mean that for Mrs. Oldfather, and I know mothers and fathers who have wept over her decision to retire. Connie is one of the hardest working people that I've ever met. She has never asked for anything more than a classroom and a group of students so that she could work her magic, creating that enthusiastic learning environment for them, and in doing so, setting a strong foundation that they would then use throughout their elementary school experience and beyond. Connie, on behalf of everyone associated with Normandale Hills, thank you for your outstanding service, and we wish you nothing but the best in retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Dr. Volmuth. Next up is Deb Wagner, Quiet Room Paraprofessional at Normandale Hills Elementary.
Thank you for being here tonight, Deb. This is not something she would want to do, nor Connie would want to do, is stand in front of a group of people and be talked about. But Deb Wagner is important in my family as well. Just this week, my son said to my daughter, "Did you go see Wagner?" Because what her job has been is dealing with student behaviors for the past 23 years. And no, my daughter had not, but that is a question that is asked quite often. Normandale Hills is also facing the loss of another, when I say institution, I really mean it, our Student Support Center paraprofessional extraordinaire, Deb Wagner. Deb has worked for Bloomington for the past 23 years, all of which have taken place at Normandale Hills. When I think of Deb and her tenure, I think of a couple things. One, she's dependable. She's always willing to help out the school community and pitch in when and where needed. She's kind but tough. A warm demander before there was such a thing as a warm demander. And she's a worker. The only time I've ever had her complain that I can remember having her complain is during COVID, when there wasn't a lot of student support center issues because kids were learning from home. And Deb would come to me and say, "I need something to do." So she's a worker in all sense of the word. For the past 23 years, Deb has made a career dealing with student behaviors and is still liked, admired, and respected by everyone associated with our school community. I think that's quite an accomplishment. Deb, please never forget how important you have been to Normandale Hills and that you will be missed by everyone, including me. We thank you and wish you nothing but the best with all future endeavors.
Great. Thank you, Deb. Dr. Volmuth. Coming up next, we'll have Jane O'Connell, family consumer science teacher from Olson Middle, and Tim Shivari, if he can get up here. Here he comes, principal of Olson Middle School.
All right. So Jane has taught in Bloomington for 29 years, and I've had the privilege of knowing Jane for the last 3 years, all through a pandemic. And I will say, Jane came to us not necessarily out of choice. It happened in the shuffle of things, as they do at the end of the year. And oftentimes it's a tough transition when you're moving from one building to the next. And with Jane, you would have had no idea. Jane embraced middle schoolers like she had been doing it her entire life. She is one of the most amazing teachers I have seen teach. Throughout the pandemic, Jane was all over her students with her content. She dressed with her your chef's hat and her chef's uniform because she really wanted her students to have the full experience of family and consumer science, even though they were at home. That's how dedicated she is. Jane, she's the only person I've ever heard say to her students, "You are my day family." And they really are to her. They are her day family. So much so that Jane believes in passing on the values, not just the content of facts, but values that will help them be successful. I recall many, many, many times walking into Jane's class, just popping in at the beginning of class as kids were, getting ready, and Jane's class was already moving, and they were moving on their own because they were doing yoga, and this is something that she did with them every day in and out, because of her belief around the emotional needs of students and how that yoga would impact them during that class period and potentially in their lives. And it did impact them in their lives. In fact, I walked into another classroom on another day, on another month, and I saw these students asking and telling their other teacher, "We need to do our yoga." So, Jane, I'm gonna miss you. The facts department's going to miss you. Our district is going to miss you. You have had such an impact on students, and I am so grateful for it. Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Let me bring her up.
Go ahead.
All right.
I'm having my
I got 4 people. They're just dying to get away from me. So let's bring up Todd Anderson. All right. All right, so Todd Anderson has been a teacher, a math teacher, for 13 years in Bloomington, and again for 3 that I've known him, again through the pandemic. And it's interesting to see, it's been interesting to see how teachers have moved through the pandemic. I think you get a real sense of who they are and what their beliefs are as they have taught online and then back to school and have cared for kids this whole year. And what I will say about Todd is a person that has consistently been guided by what he believes is right for kids. And that belief he's been unyielding in that belief. And as a principal, sometimes that's not easy, but it is what's best for students. And I'll tell this story. I've got a couple stories about Todd. So, Todd really believed. So Todd has a unique and I think innovative way of teaching math. And so over the years that I've known him, Todd and I have had extensive conversations about math. And his way of teaching will sometimes deviate from his colleagues. And as we've talked, and as we've argued, and as he's been unyielding, we've seen his test scores of kids go up and go up and go up. And then the day came when my student needed help with math. And as you do as a principal, you go to the people you know who can help. So I went to Todd and I said, Todd, my child needs some help. And I need him to do what it is you're doing. And I will never ask you again to not do what you're doing. So Todd, I really appreciate everything you've done for our students. I appreciate that unyielding moral compass that you've had in looking out for what's right for kids. I'm excited for Todd. Todd is starting a new chapter in his life. While he's retiring, he's moving on to grow his business as he's a volleyball coach, but he has a whole business around volleyball for students in Bloomington, and I'm guessing around the metro area.
Yep, mainly Bloomington, but yeah, surrounding areas.
And this is another story I'll tell in his unyielding belief of what's right for kids. Todd started this many years ago, and at that time, his program was so good. Students were, in fact, wanting to do his program and not necessarily some of what we were offering. And I think that speaks really well of Todd and what he offers. And in the face of perhaps some criticism, Todd kept on and kept going and has created a program that is very, very effective and very good for kids. It serves their needs so well, and it's serving our community now so well. And Todd, our community will be grateful for what you are giving us. And I'm grateful for what you've given us over the past 13 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Deb Lincoln. So while Deb comes up, I'll talk a little bit about Deb. Has been a paraprofessional at Oak Grove Middle School. And while I'm the principal at Olson, I was the assistant principal at Oak Grove for many years, for about 12 years. And I've known Deb, well, Deb's been working for for Bloomington for at least 15 years. So I've known Deb for a long time. Brian Engelman, her current principal, couldn't be here today, so he asked me to speak on his behalf, and I called him today and said, is there anything you want me to say? And he had a lot of very nice things to say about Deb, which I'm not going to tell you right now. So I'm going to tell a story about Deb, and I think this epitomizes Deb. As many of you know, our paras have a very difficult job. They're some of the hardest working people, I believe, in our district. And Deb had, some years back, Deb had a student, I'll call him Danny. My brother's name is Danny, so I'll call him Danny. And Deb worked with kids in a Setting 3 program, and the students had a lot of needs. And she worked specifically with Danny. And Danny was a handful. And Deb's job was to be with him and help manage his social and academic day at school. And Danny was all over the place. And so Deb was all over the place. And there were many days where Deb came into our offices and said, hey, this is what's going on with Danny. We need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And she was right. And we would attempt to adjust where we could. But Deb never let up on Danny. Deb wasn't going to give up on him. And she stayed with him and stayed on him despite what were many difficult days. And I've seen Deb do that over and over and over again with her students. And so, Deb, your impact on those students has been significant, as you know. And I'm very happy for Deb. I said to her as she walked in today, I said, Deb, if anybody deserves to retire, you do. So Deb, congratulations. I know you will be missed. And thank you for everything you've done. All right, and Kathy Beniski. Oh, there you are. So when they said we were going to be on TV, I said, I'm going to have to adjust my speech for you, Kathy. Okay, so Kathy, man, what, 20-some years, I don't know, 23 years ago, I started teaching at Olson Middle School, and Kathy was a teacher at Olson Middle School. And so I've known her for 23 years. She's taught for 28 years. I didn't know Kathy all that well when I was a tech ed teacher. She is one of those, those people you know kind of from afar, and you look at them and you go, they're interesting. So it gets better. It gets better. And I also didn't know her name. I didn't say it correctly. I probably still don't. And then I moved on. I moved on to Oak Grove and then came back as the principal. And then I started really to get to know Kathy. And you realize the reason why you thought, well, they're interesting was because they really are interesting. Kathy started her career, I guess, in life as a singer in a band. And she continues to this day to sing. I remember watching Kathy on stage with Tom Lee one day singing. You were there. I was there. I know I was there. And sharing her talents with us. She then was an educator for many years, then ran a restaurant business, and then came back as an educator. That's just some of the things. This is all I know. I'm sure there's more. But I'm sure there is. And so as I've gotten to know Kathy, I've realized, wow, this woman she's got a very unique, very interesting history and background. And so today I asked a couple of our staff, a couple of people who know Kathy, I said, what would you say about Kathy? And immediately they said, oh, that's how it started. And they said, and these were the words, kind, empathetic, loves kids, understanding, so good with kids, funny, gets the emotional needs of kids, love her, caring, compassionate, And then I stopped them, and I said, okay, that's fine, it's enough. So they could go on and on. And really, the list could go, it really could go on and on. Kathy and I have shared tears. I've seen Kathy share tears with students, which is a rare thing. And it speaks volumes about how students feel. I won't get you about how students feel about you. It does. And I really think, and somebody earlier said this too, our students are going to miss you the most. I'm going to miss you, but our students have really, they're going to miss you. So, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Up next to the stage, I'd ask Mark Eggers, social studies teacher from Kennedy High School, and unfortunately, Principal Osmond couldn't be here tonight, so pinch hitting with Mark will be Dr. Jason Anderson, Principal of Jefferson.
Well, thank you. I wasn't prepared for this evening, but I know Mark well enough where I feel very confident in this. Mark Eggers taught in Bloomington Public Schools for many years, currently and most recently at Kennedy High School, but his formative years at Jefferson High School when he was a younger man. And I do believe Mark is forever a Jaguar. Mark, in my time with him, I don't know that I have ever met anyone who cared as much, as deeply as much about kids' success as Mark. He took it personally. He took it sincerely. His role as a mentor, modeler of academic excellence, a modeler of citizenship. He cared about our students like they were his own. And I felt that his passion came through all of the time. Mark was also the lifeblood of our staff. He organized our retirement parties. He organized our socials. He organized so many things that if Mark was there, you knew that party was going to be fun and enjoyable and meaningful. We miss Mark. We fought and tried to keep him for as long as we could. We miss Mark so much. We know he's going on to better things, a more relaxing time. Chatting with his much younger and much more attractive bride in the cafeteria. We know that his wife, who had a work from home job, is now going to switch it to an in the office job because she needs her time away from Mark for just a couple more years until she can retire. But he'll find something to keep himself occupied with. Mark is a great human, a great teacher. We miss him. We know he will be successful, and I think we'll see him back in the halls of Jefferson from time to time moving forward. Congratulations, Mark, on your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Thank you, Mark Eggers. I talked to Mark, too. I think we will see him. I think he's going to come and sub for us, and I thanked him already for that. So thanks, Mark. Next up, Helen Wells, a Strive teacher from Washburn Elementary, and her principal, Andrew Wilkins.
Welcome, everyone. I'm a first-time attendee, but a long-time fan, so give me some grace here, please. Helen Wells started in the district back in the fall of 2004, and I just realized that my old eyes, sorry.
Principal Wilkins, are you aware of who hired Helen Wells back then?
Finishing my first line of my sentence here. Yes.
Oh.
In the fall of 2004, Dr. Melby hired Helen Wells and graced us with her presence in Bloomington Public Schools. Before that time, though, she had 2 other jobs in 2 other districts and brought 14 years of teaching experience to us. She worked as an MMI teacher at Westwood Elementary School from 2004 to 2017, and then transferred to the wonderful Washburn Elementary School in 2017. One of her stories that she shared is back when she started. Justine Rieger was a para in one of her rooms at Westwood. And Justine is the mother-in-law of Sarah Rieger, who is a current speech pathologist at Washburn Elementary School. And Helen always jokes that she started with a Rieger, and she's going to end with a Rieger. And she has done that. Over the years that I've known Helen, we've shared a lot of wonderful stories about southern Minnesota. We have those ties, and we always will. She's extremely dedicated to her job, extremely dedicated to the students that she serves. My favorite moments with Helen are in the lunchroom. She has 11, 12 students in there, and it's almost like a wrestling match. But the kids eat, and she keeps them away from touching me with their fingers with the Cheetos and chocolate milk and all that good stuff. And I know she's going to miss swimming on Thursdays with all those kiddos. And if there's just one more Thursday left, I would have joined you. I'm sorry. Maybe next time. In Helen's words, not mine, she has loved her time at Washburn. She's going to be missed, and hopefully we'll see her back subbing in the near future. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Helen. Up next from Washburn Elementary, Media Center Clerk Lori Matlin.
Tonight was the first time I have seen Lori in almost a year. Lori was hired in Bloomington back in 2004 as an office support clerk at Jefferson. No ties to Jefferson anymore. She's like over that. No more. She worked in math, science, and the vocational departments. Talked about making grocery runs and all kinds of wonderful things back then. In the fall of 2006, she accepted the media clerk position over at Washburn Elementary School, and she was in the media center for the remainder of her years in Bloomington until she left us last August. She left us to pursue one of her dreams, and this is going to sound really crazy, but she's working with 3- and 4-year-olds, and she says she loves it. So, and every day she goes home and she is tired. But we thank her for her time at Bloomington. My favorite memories of Lori are in the media center, reading with students and having them just so engaged and looking at her as she did such a wonderful job reading those stories to them. Another favorite memory, Lori would help us out with bus duty occasionally. And I know this was not on purpose, but I swear every time that we called upon her to help, it was either raining or snowing outside. But she was always a good sport about it, always dressed for the weather. We've missed her, but we know she's doing what she wants to do, and we thank her for that. So thank you, Lori.
One more from Washburn Elementary School?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell one. She's reminded me of a great story. So Lori took up golfing a few years ago, and she needed a golf cart, a pull cart. And I had a pull cart at my house up in the rafters of my garage. And so one morning I went out there to grab that golf cart out of the rafters, thinking, I'll just give it a little tip. It'll fall. I'll catch it. We're done. Well, I tipped it. It fell. I did not catch it. Busted the windshield out of my wife's car. Luckily, there was not a deductible, so the $20 that I got for the cart, but I still made the $20. So, thank you for that wonderful memory, Lori.
Thanks, Lori. Last one from Washburn Elementary, Leticia Borgen, the program management aide, paraprofessional.
Leticia, or Tish as she is called and goes by, was a paraprofessional with us at Washburn. She joined the district in 2007. She worked as a program management support para all of her years within the district. She worked for 6 years at Jefferson. I don't know what it is with this Jefferson thing, but again, left. Okay. Before that, she did some short stints at Westwood and Oak Grove. In 2013, she found her way back to Westwood, working with Helen, and called that place home for 3 years before packing up and moving to Washburn. There's a pattern there. Jefferson, elsewhere, Washburn, love it, home. Tish was responsible for giving me one of my favorite birthday gifts one year. She had done some work with the Minnesota Twins, and I was down there and around, and one year I received an autographed baseball from Bert Blyleven, so that was a pretty sweet birthday gift. And I look at that every morning. So, Tish has been missed. She has not been with us this year. She moved on to do some things with her family, and I hope that's going well for you. We do miss you at Washburn. I know the students miss you. Armando really misses you. But thank you so much. And surprisingly enough, Tish echoed Helen's words about Washburn and the fact that she loved it. Lori, for some reason, didn't say that. It might have been the fact that I had her outside in the snowstorms and the rain and all that stuff. But thank you for your service. You are missed, and thank you.
Thank you, Tish. Thank you, Principal Wilkins. Next up to the stage, jumping around a little bit here, but Joseph Zimmerman, math teacher from Kennedy High School. And again, Principal Osmond couldn't be here, and I think I can speak for all of us when we've had enough of Jason Anderson's speeches tonight. So I'm going to invite a special guest speaker up. Sorry, Jason. That was a joke, everybody. Come on. Josiah Egenik, if I pronounce that correctly, will be presenting for Joseph Zimmerman. Hi, thank you for being here.
Oh, of course. I am really, it is a pleasure to speak on behalf of Joe. I've worked with him for about 10 years in the Kennedy Math Department, and I really have enjoyed him very much as a colleague, and I know that he's also a great teacher. We both taught geometry together for a few years, several years ago, and collaborating with him in a PLC was truly a pleasure. And then I've never been in his classroom, but I know he's a great teacher because I work with many of his students. He teaches Honors Algebra 2, and for the past 7 years, I've taught Honors Pre-Calculus. And he has molded his students, my students, into excellent mathematicians. So he's wonderful. I will miss him as a colleague. Kennedy will miss him, and his future school in South Carolina is very lucky to have him. If you happen to cross paths with him, you should ask him about his upcoming 5 llamas. He will be very happy to speak about the llamas that are waiting for him in South Carolina. So,
great.
That's the story of Joe.
Thank you, Josiah, for pinch hitting. And you learn something new every time you come to these things about people, right? So, up next to the stage, I'm going to ask Michelle Engel, speech-language pathologist, Southwood Center, and Jennifer Mcintyre, the Executive Director of Special Education.
First of all, I need a microphone because that one is way cooler than this one.
Well,
right?
Maybe next year.
And going last means I don't get a microphone. It means I have this microphone, right? So this is my best at ad-libbing because I have to say I have the honor tonight, and it has actually been a gift given to me over the course of the last couple of weeks, to honor the 3 women I get to honor tonight. All 3 of them are in our early childhood special education program, and all 3 of them are the foundation of our early childhood special education program. They have built it from the beginning, from the inception, here in Minnesota and here in Bloomington. I will tell you, I watched my colleagues tonight talk off the cuff. I don't trust myself to do that, so I've actually written out what I'm going to say, because it is important for me to be able to honor all 3 of these women. The first one being Michelle Engel. Michelle is fantastic, as you can see. All right, and I'm short, so we're going to do this. Okay. Michelle started working in Bloomington Public Schools during the 1988-89 school year. Side note, I graduated from high school in '87, so as we were talking about this, we had this really great bonding moment. Yeah, it was good, yeah. She started as a bright, energetic speech-language pathologist and has continued to provide incredible services for the past 34 years. Mm-hmm. Michelle had spent 2 short years in St. Peter prior to Bloomington, knowing she was destined for the metro area, unknowingly to build an unbelievable program. She started at Kennedy High School, not Jefferson, sorry Jason, and Indian Mounds Elementary School as a speech-language pathologist. By her account, she spent a great deal of time walking around the Kennedy Circle, trying to find students and always not finding them. This is not unlike the speech-language pathologist of 2022. After finding her way out of the circle, as you know, Kennedy has a circle and a square, right? You get lost in the circle sometimes. After finding her way out of the circle at Kennedy High School, she found her way to early childhood special education, which was a very small program in Bloomington at the time. Our Ecsc program was just starting to make some changes to align with the larger changes in the state of Minnesota, as we were doing inclusive services for families and children ages birth to 3. She was the first in our district to do this. The Ecsc program was a larger program for 3 to 5-year-old students in preschool. However, the services for birth through age 3 children and families was starting to grow in the early 90s. The teams slowly started to grow as Michelle's knowledge of services for families and young children grew. Michelle was key to building the Ecsc program and trying out different methods for providing services to children and families. Through home visiting, small groups, inclusion groups, you think of a program design, and I would guarantee you Michelle has tried that program design. As our Ecsc program grew, Michelle took us from paper pencil, literally, paper pencil, carbon copy reports, to the web-based system that we have now. She took us from documentation of IEPs, triple IEPs, IFSPs, a host of other acronyms that I think she just made up to be Bloomington unique. I think she's just trying to keep us all on our toes as we went along. Michelle quickly became the lead for our due process components of special education. She was seen as a mentor to so many of our new and also experienced staff members. Michelle always had children and families at the center of the work that she did to develop and build communication and language for children and families. She was a positive presence for families when sometimes there was worry, frustration, and low amounts of hope for what was to come in the next few years. Michelle would always figure out a way to support a family and the children she was serving, oftentimes leading in the small but mighty Ecsc team. One of Michelle's favorite parts of her job has been leading speech and language small groups with students. These are really fun classes, and so many of our children benefited from having individualized attention. She also loved working with students who were nonverbal and helping them find ways to communicate. Several of our teachers and early childhood practitioners that she worked with were the early pioneers for assisting with students who were diagnosed with autism at an early age. Again, the cornerstone of doing that for our district here and for the state of Minnesota. One fond memory that Michelle shared with me was as she was working with a student who was nonverbal and diagnosed with autism, wanted to show Michelle just how much she cared about her. She chose to give Michelle a full body hug from behind, just as Michelle was sitting on the floor. The student successfully toppled over, squishing Michelle to the floor. Yes. The classroom teacher and Michelle giggled until they could not themselves get up off the floor. They literally laid on the floor as this child was pinning her to the floor, is my understanding of how the story went. Yes. As the stories that I've heard have supported, Michelle is known to be very fun, creative, and playful teammate on our Ecsc team. Over the years, Michelle has become very close with many families and had the pleasure of watching them grow up and start families of their own. In talking to her, you can see and feel the dedication and love for ECSE as she describes the first time a family hears their child's voice or sees their child communicate using sign language with intention. You can feel her excitement as she relives the moments when she helped so many families find their way through understanding the early impacts of the disability and into a shared language with their child. One of our colleagues stated that Michelle tries to find ways to help children communicate, and if it doesn't work, the first time she keeps trying until she figures it out. Using low-tech tools to more complicated communication strategies and devices, Michelle does not give up. Even when someone borrows her tools, she is quick to make another one, stating that a child or family must have needed it, and we can always make more. Words for us to remember by Michelle as we embark on all of our new journeys. I have loved my job, and I have loved working with kids and families, and it has been a wonderful career. I love everyone I work with, and we have had a very good time. To be clear on what she is saying, that was maybe the top surface of it, but she clarified for me what she meant. During my first year, I didn't hurt anybody. However, I'm not really sure that I helped anybody. That may be the truth of it, 34 years ago. The relationships that we foster are the most important thing, Michelle continued to tell me. If you do not have a relationship, you will truly not make a difference. In so many of our roles within education, it is really okay to role release and allow those around you, particularly our families and our children, to grow, struggle, and grow even further than they had ever expected. They do not teach you how to provide birth to 3 services in college. This we have learned through the lessons when working so closely with families, children, and each other. I truly love this job and the teams I have worked alongside. Thank you, Michelle, for being instrumental in creating and developing our ECSE program, along with mentoring and growing the staff who will continue to serve our families and children for years to come here in Bloomington.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jennifer. Fun fact, before I call up the next person, I know Michelle's got a large contingent here with her tonight. I know the Bloomington Public Schools has been around for a little over 100 years, and with Michelle leaving, it'll be the first time in about 100 years we don't have an Engel in the system as a student or an employee. So it's a new era. Congratulations, Michelle. Next up, Colleen Mclaughlin, speech-language pathologist, Southwood, and Jennifer Mcintyre.
Yes. Thank you. So Colleen McLaughlin, as you come up to the stage. And I would have to say also, all 3 of the women I'm getting to honor tonight absolutely love the spotlight, and they love to be talked about in front of others. Colleen, you are fantastic. Yes. This is Colleen McLaughlin. Colleen is a soft-spoken, caring, dedicated speech-language therapist who has provided services for our early child special education students for the past 36 years. And she started when she was 12. Right? That will work, yes. And we also went to high school together. I'm just kidding. She is a graduate of the University of Minnesota with a double major in child psychology with speech-hearing science. Colleen also attended graduate school at U of M to become a speech-language pathologist. She started with us as a long-haul sub at Valley View Elementary School in April of that year, for just a few short months. During this time, Minnesota was changing their laws around school districts, providing special education services to children who were 3 years of age. The team in Bloomington made the wise choice and offered Colleen the position as a speech-language pathologist to start the following year and to assist newly formed ECSE team, remember that small team that Michelle was a part of, in developing programming to our youngest learners. To start, there were 2 classrooms at Southwood. On a side note, one of those 2 classrooms, some of you who have been here for quite some time, was a warming house for the ice rink on the east side of Southwood. To this day, it still has a small smell of the warming house when it was for the ice rink. Yeah, I'm not even kidding, that is very true. When the 3-year-old programming started here in Bloomington and here in Minnesota, we had 1 classroom teacher and 1 speech-language pathologist in each of our 2 classrooms. Colleen was also a part of the first Kids Together program, bringing together our inclusion preschool classrooms between family education and special education all of those years ago. She's a true pioneer in the field of early childhood special education. Just as the 3-year-old programs were taking shape, another new law was being passed in Minnesota in the early 1990s. We spoke of that with Michelle just a bit. This brought a change yet again to our ECSE programs by having school districts provide special education services along with families for children ages birth to age 3. Colleen provided services for some of our families and children as a part of our birth through age 3 program and continued to provide services for our preschool and 4-year-old preschool learners, preparing them for kindergarten. As we have already heard tonight, Colleen worked closely with other speech-language pathologists in our ECSE program to provide speech and language services in small groups, as well as in our preschool classrooms. From there, we have only grown into having 2 early childhood centers and early childhood classrooms across many of our elementary buildings, and we have a total now of 8 speech-language pathologists just for our ECSE program. So we started with 2, and we've now grown to 8 in just that program. Colleen has been a part of this incredible expansion of early childhood services provided for our Bloomington communities. With thoughtful reflection on the children she has worked with, Colleen stated with a sly smile, "With kids, they just say the darndest things. There is an honesty about children, and they just say what they're going to say. It just makes you laugh," as only I think a speech-language pathologist could say. As you listen to Colleen express her time in working with children, she has a quiet love for the work that she has so successfully been doing over the course of her career. The care of the children and families resonates off of each statement that she makes about her friendships and relationships with families and children over the years. Being able to share ideas and problem-solve approaches to working together to assist children in finding their voices and articulating their words so that others are able to understand what they are communicating. Some of Colleen's favorite moments have been being able to see the change for a learner, which sometimes takes a long time. However, as she explains, when you see it, you cannot help but get excited. Then the moment the child understands that they have finally articulated the sounds, spoken the words, and were finally heard for what they were trying to communicate, it is an amazing transformation of confidence and sheer amazement that is expressed on the child's face. In Colleen explaining this to me, it literally gave me goosebumps and brought tears to my eyes. It is an amazing thing to hear one of our dedicated speech-language pathologists talk about the amazing transformation of our children. The pride in Colleen's voice when talking through the change is inspiring. It is truly inspiring. She expresses a profound sense of feeling that as a speech-language pathologist and educators, we are shaping children and watching them grow and change. That is what Colleen truly loves about the services that she has eloquently provided for the past 36 years. As Colleen expresses how this change happens for students and the growth that is observed, she's teaching me how it happens. She's teaching me by using these terrific techniques and modeling for me how to better understand this work and just explaining to me what her career has been like. She cannot help but teach, as she even talks about her love for the job. When asked if she could go back to her younger self 36 years ago, what would you say? You need to expect change. Change is constant. I'm like, oh, amen to that, right? Wow. You need to be a team player, willing to be flexible and to be respectful of people, knowing that you are not always going to agree. Above all, be kind to yourself, as you are always learning. I've learned so much from so many people in so many places over the years. Start building relationships with the people around you, as they are so important, as everyone goes through good and bad times in their lives. And these are the relationships that will get you through it all. They are the ones who will support you as you will support them. And some have remained for over the past 25 to 35 years of genuine caring and deep friendship. Looking forward to retirement is traveling. Having the flexibility to travel throughout the whole year and not just in the summer. Perhaps learning something new, trying something new in retirement, and possibly subbing. That would be my hope, possibly subbing. Truly looking forward to spending time with her husband, and as she stated to me, they really get along and enjoy spending time together. So that's fantastic. They're already beginning to plan and form a visit to their daughter this coming fall in Croatia, and to seek out where their ancestors started their families. Woohoo! Yay. One last thought from Colleen. I would never have thought at the beginning of the school year, when people were getting 40 years of service recognition, that it would be me someday. I sat there and thought, there's no way that is going to be me someday. And today, it is you, Colleen. Thank you, Colleen, for your service to Bloomington Public Schools, to the community of Bloomington, to the field of early childhood special education and speech language therapy. Your calm, quiet, and positive approach will be missed by so many. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen and Jennifer. And then I'll ask Rebecca Lee Anderson, early childhood special education teacher at Southwood, to come on up. Jennifer will give your speech, and this is the last honoree of the evening. So.
Okay, so thank you, school board, for being here. And now I feel as though the last couple of months you've gotten used to me coming to board meetings, and I tend to go long. I'm sorry. It's just my thing. Yeah, my colleagues have called me on it. They're like, we're going to start to time you soon. Okay, back to Becky, because Becky is terrific. Becky Anderson, and it's Becky Lee, Rebecca Lee. That's kind of fun. Yeah. Okay, Becky Anderson. From the first moment you meet Becky, you know that you have met someone who is open, warm, knowledgeable, and willing to work to understand how to meet the needs of children and families from the first minute you meet her. When Becky finished her undergraduate degree, they didn't have birth to 3 services in Minnesota quite yet. Her first license was an EBD teacher, emotional behavioral disorder teacher, as Minnesota did not even have an ECSE license to offer at that time. Becky started in Wilmer, Minnesota as an early childhood special education teacher and provided services, actually, I'm going to restate that, as an EBD teacher, being an early childhood special education teacher. Right, yes, because they didn't have the license, so we had to ad lib a bit. And she provided services to 21 different school districts. And in those 21 different school districts, she actively developed the early childhood special education services for all of them. She was so driven to learn and to follow her passion for early childhood, and she learned that Wisconsin, to no surprise, I'm from Wisconsin, so to no surprise that Wisconsin was ahead of the early childhood game. She taught in Osceola, Wisconsin, for a few years when Becky decided to seek out additional training in early child special education and, of course, headed to Illinois, where the head of the Council for Exceptional Children, the Division of Early Childhood, why not go to the top, was working to have a master's program in ECSE in Illinois. Minnesota wasn't quite there yet, so she went to Illinois. When she finished her master's, she went to work for Fraser here in the area, helping to run their day treatment program, specializing in working with families and children identified with autism. After about 12 years of wanting to be in the classroom and to have a focus on autism, she joined our team here in Bloomington and has been with us for the past 24 years as an ECSE teacher. And a lot has happened, not just here in Bloomington, but in the world of autism. Some of Becky's favorite moments in working in early childhood special education is the collaboration with her team members. The one thing that I have come to really know about Becky is teaming, her team, her teammates, her partners, her collaborators are the first thing she talks about. It is the thing that is in her heart, is the folks that she works with hand in hand every single day. Being a part of these teams, we have seen families being successful with learning about their child or children and the unique needs that they face. It has been so fun getting to see kids graduating high school and being such a part of a family that she continues to receive holiday cards, graduation invitations, and updates from families throughout the years. And of course, being a part of a family's life and supporting teams when students we have worked so closely with pass away. When asked to share a favorite memory, I was not expecting the story I was told. Here's how Becky started her story. So I guess it was when I almost burned down a house. Right? I was like, give me the phone number to our business services. Only to be followed by, when families have candles burning in their houses, well, they have them burning for lots of different reasons. We don't always know why. There's just always seems to be candles sometimes burning in houses. You tend to pay pretty close attention to the environment when candles are burning in a house when you're there to visit. Well, in this particular situation, there was a candle in the middle of the table as the team was meeting around that table. And the team was doing paperwork, due process paperwork in special education, during this home visit. So Becky picked up the document and passed it over the candle to the family sitting on the other side of the table, just as the notice of team meeting started on fire. Yes. Needless to say, with a little quick thinking on Becky's part and quick wit to keep everybody calm, the fire was put out with only minimal damage to the paperwork. The table, candle, and house were left intact. She just had one question that has remained in her mind ever since then. Can our school insurance cover a house? I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that question. I might have to talk to Dr. Melby after this. In hearing the story, you get a true sense of the levels of experience in entering so many homes and working with so many families over the years. For many of you, I'm just realizing, many of you may not know this, we go into our Birth to Three, teachers go into the homes of all of our families. And during this time of pandemic, we were doing all of our services virtually or very creatively through glass doors, across the hood of a car, because if you didn't know this, it's 6 feet long across the hood of a car. We've really been innovative in the way we've provided services to our youngest learners, our birth to age 3. And Becky and the other 2 women who we celebrated tonight really did their best to do all of those things during this pandemic. So for Becky, the wisdom of situations that you find yourself in and knowing how to handle it by being quick on your feet and having a good sense of humor to roll with what comes your way is something that our ECSE team learns from each other, from the families they serve, and from a true love of the work that they do. Becky is also leaving us with some of her words of wisdom. You really do need to be a little bit of an extrovert in this field, even if you're not. Never get too stuck in a certain way. Just be yourself, and don't force it, as families are just so unique. Use your knowledge as base and your instincts in working with families to create the strategies that you will use, and most of all, have fun with the families you meet. That is how we make connections and can do this work, and do this work well. When asked, Becky stated that, "My colleagues would say that I don't take things too seriously and just roll with it and overall stay calm." Her colleagues did say that Becky lives and breathes assuming positive intent. Something new comes along, she always brings her colleagues back around to share the positives and looks for the silver linings in what is being asked of them. Becky is always wanting to learn more and is a go-getter. She quickly learns new things and is eager to teach them. I like to think that's when she went to Wisconsin and worked there for a while. Becky listens intently and repeats back to the staff or families that she has heard what they are saying. She has a quiet, calm manner with families, reassuring them, exchanging ideas, celebrating the accomplishments their child has made, and teaching them what steps to try to be more successful if needed. She brainstorms how to adapt an idea they are working on to make it more successful for their child. She gently encourages parents to expect more, and with them comes up with ideas on how to make it happen. She helps a parent see progress, even if it's very small steps. Of course, she always knows how to have a good time, even if it is demonstrating to a family how to engage their child using random objects she has found. Perhaps they may have another more medical purpose for their use, and not as drumsticks or to play to get attention. Or finding humor in a small mouse that had done their very last backstroke in her water bottle the night before. Right, and then we burned the house down. Okay. Becky confided that she loves this job and is trying to always work through what is needed for a family and a child. There has never been a day that I have not wanted to go to work in all of these years. Becky is looking forward to retirement, volunteering, and working with families. She's looking forward to helping single moms to get them to a place where they want to be in life. Raise the Bar for Single Moms is an example of a group that she's very interested in working with. Thank you, Becky, for your calm approach to the complex services within early childhood special education services. Your kind words, heart, and caring manner will carry on with your teammates, as you have so eloquently modeled this for them for so many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm always looking for any kind of silver lining in pandemic years, right? So Becky at least taught us that we took the fire danger out of passing out special education paperwork during the pandemic. So thank you for that. I want to thank the school board for being here and honoring you all tonight. I want to thank Deb Bunkholt, my assistant, for all the work that goes into organizing this event tonight. Our food service staff for the snacks, the piano players, fantastic. So great to see you all here tonight. Congratulations to each of you, and thank you for your service to the Bloomington Public Schools. Now, this is on TV, so on three, get ready. Those of you that have bells, hold them up, be ready. Those of you that have certificates, you can just sort of shake them. Maybe they'll make some noise. On three, ring the bells. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
One of those days, take advantage of it. You're good with the boy band, Mike. You should get those.
Yeah,
all the time.
starting to get my groove on there.